David Barrow. I feel uncomfortable calling you that, but I'm going to start with that. David Barrow, welcome back to the Graft podcast. You are our first returning guest.
Am I?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, thank you.
Well, we have invited everyone else, but they all said no. But you are back.
I had nothing else to do.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Quick recap for those people who perhaps maybe didn't catch the first episode. You wrote a book called Oh Shit, I've Got Bowel Cancer, which, as we said at the time, doesn't need a massive amount of introduction. That was your first book of 3 as a plan. And the first time that we spoke was at the end of the first book, where you were talking about knowing that something was wrong, a discomforting feeling in your stomach, going to have scans, seeing something on the monitor about, that doesn't look quite right, getting that confirmation from the surgeons, and then going to have it removed. But today we're back to talk about the second stage of that, Dars, to give people an insight of what the treatment looks like thereafter. And obviously we've had some conversations about it and you've shared some already, but am I right to think a little bit that when we were talking the first time, that identification, that worry, that removal, when I think about that story, I go, God, that would have been terrifying, obviously. You've had it removed. Happy days. We're all okay. But then you go, obviously, into a second stage of treatment, which you're going to talk about, which you're going to give a very different view on, because we shared some stories. So, first of all, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Where are you on the health journey at the moment?
So right now, I am what you would call no evidence of disease, which essentially means I don't have cancer.
Amazing.
So
We
that's
should
the
all.
cool bit.
Amazing. I don't know if you say well done to that. Do you say well? That's
know.
great news. That is
Thank
great
you.
news.
And that means that now I'm just under observation for the next few years. But I have less hospital appointments, less scans. Certainly not like once or twice or 3 times a week. Now it's once every 6 months. So it's just kind of a watching brief right now.
Okay. But then coming out of that surgery element last time, Dars, you then go in to have a form of chemotherapy.
That's right. Yep.
So what's it like day one? How are you feeling going into it? Because like I say, I don't know if it's a male thing, but in my head, I was like, you've had it removed, you sorted. How did you feel going into it?
I was fine until the night before, to be honest. I say in the book that the night before, really well-meaning people kept messaging me going, good luck tomorrow, you must be anxious. And I was like, I'm not anxious. And then suddenly I became really anxious.
Yeah, you're making me anxious.
Yeah. And so how it begins, in my case, I had what's called Capox. So it's a combination of 2 drugs. Hopefully I get these right, capicetabine and oxyplatin. Oxyplatin has to come in intravenously. So when you first go in, you kind of have a day there learning about your treatment, which is bizarre. They just tell you to eat chocolate and cake, which is, in my mind, the last thing you should be doing.
Why? Why do you have to do that? What's the significance of it?
I later discover that your taste buds materially change and you just need to eat. And therefore, you go for the things that are easiest, which I could probably come to later.
Right.
Massively affects your taste. But yeah, you have this thing called a PICC line installed. I've still got a little scar here. And they kind of, in my case, put 52 centimetres of little line straight down into my blood system. And that's the thing they hook you up to, the matrix, when you get your first oxyplatin. And then you take a series of tablets. And the way it tends to work is you'll have, and everyone's different, so this is my case, and it's probably the most common case, but everyone is different, is you have essentially 2 or 3 weeks on the drugs, then a week off to recover, and then you go again and again and again, and then they assess you. And in my case, it was just over 3 months. So this time a year ago, we're in April now of 2026, this time last year, I was just beginning my second course.
Right, okay. So from your friends causing you to be anxious, thank you, friends, but obviously from a caring space altogether, you're in on that first day. How did you find it? How, were you daunted? Because once you kind of like anything from a medical perspective, everybody naturally tenses up, don't they? Apart from the kind of attention you're getting, which a lot of people, you know, kind of they say is quite a comforting element of these sort of treatments. That there is a lot of the unknown, isn't there? So, how were you reacting to kind of that unknown?
You know, the hardest part I found, and it's a delicate subject, is you're in a room with other people having the treatment, and they're all at different stages. Some are at much more advanced stages than others. So you end up comparing yourself to the other people in the room, and your mind can do some bonkers things about where you might end up. So on that first one, my whole kind of way of dealing with it was just to look at my iPad and not watch anything, but just look anywhere but at the people around me. On that first one, you're normally allowed a partner in with you to help settle you down, but my poor wife, Emma, she was full of flu, which unfortunately I would later get during chemo, which was horrific. So she couldn't be with me. So it's, apart from when the person comes round with a cup of tea, which unfortunately is hideous, and a stale sandwich, you are there in this room with a lot of other ill people, and the thing that's going on is immaterial. It's like anything, being surrounded by illness sends you on a bit of a weird spiral.
Yeah, I'm trying to visualize that. I'm sure as people listen to this, they will as well. That's not a nice circle to be in.
No.
I would be comparing and contrasting. I'm kind of thinking myself of, I would stare at the iPad. Yeah. How did you get through that? How did you get through that day?
That day was snooker. So luckily the snooker was on. So I was watching the snooker, which gave me something to zone off to. The day itself wasn't so bad, really, apart from that. It was that evening when I got home. So the way the treatment works is it takes effect pretty quickly. And you're prepared for that, but you're not prepared for that. And so it was around 15, 16 degrees when I walked out. And I'd already been forewarned that as soon as I get anywhere near some cold air, things might start to happen. And in my case, that particular evening, I went through a combination of lockjaw, choking on cold air, being unable to breathe, hands freezing in place like a crab. And so actually after the treatment was the worst bit, because you start discovering all of these crazy things about the side effects, and trying to manage them, no matter how much they've prepared you, is actually really quite difficult. And I also in the book liken it to being like my life in the 90s, but without any of the fun. Because you are awake all night, and there are drugs doing their thing, but none of it's good, and a lot of it messes with the mind as well.
One of the headlines that you've got, you talk about fizzy hands, frozen eyes.
Yeah.
Tell us what that means.
So the way the chemotherapy works is it's not specifically looking for cancerous cells, it's going at everything.
It's like a bleaching process of your body, isn't it? It's how it was described to us by Jill Carsberg, who's been on the show.
Jill's spot on. And so therefore, the way your blood works in your body is it gets to the end of your body. You know, fingertips, toes, eyes. And so the next morning, when I decided to foolishly go and walk the dogs, I say in the book, I was dressed like an SAS man. All I had on show was my eyes. And it was probably 15, 16 degrees outside. But my hands were fizzing. They were stuck in this kind of clawy pose. My right butt cheek was fizzing, weirdly. I think there's something about this podcast and my backside, by the way, that we talk about. But then it got to the eyes. So my eyes literally froze shut, and I had to take my gloved hands and kind of hold them like that.
Shit.
Because of the fizziness and the extremity just really kicked in. And it also gives you, I guess, like any extreme feeling, it makes you want to vomit. and they give you anti-vomit drugs for the first 3 or 4 days. So yeah, it was a fairly bizarre experience on that first day, and actually, it's a cumulative process as well. So by the 4th treatment, it's really kicking in, but you're kind of a bit more used to it. But that's when it really gets quite hard to deal with.
Yeah. Was that scary, Dar? I mean, that's to your point. If, the surgery's a physical battle, physical rebuild.
Yeah.
Fitness and what you can and can't do. This, this sounds a bit more, mentally challenging as well.
Yeah, I said to my wife at the time, and I would say it now, if they were going to offer me surgery once a week, every week, or chemotherapy once every 3 weeks, I would take surgery once a week, every week. Pain, without wanting to belittle people that live in pain and have pain you can manage, in my opinion. This is your body being ravaged, and there's nothing you can do about it. But I do want to say, because this is all sounding quite dark, and this is why this book's called The Fog of Chemotherapy, because it's a very foggy place to be. But just to put a slightly positive spin on there, the NHS, they give you a 24/7 helpline. You can phone these people up and they will coach you through it. And believe me, I never thought I'd pick up that phone to those people, and I picked up that phone on many occasions.
If I can ask, when was the first time you did that? What were you ringing for? What did you say?
I was ringing on the Monday. My chemo was always on the Friday, so it was a great way to spend a weekend. I was ringing on the Monday because I had a colonoscopy booked for the Wednesday. And I was like, I cannot physically get to this colonoscopy. I mentioned my wife had the flu. I also then got the flu. So I was now literally unable to get out of bed. And I know, like, if you get the flu, you say you can't get out of bed. I couldn't. It took me until the Thursday to just drag myself downstairs. I think it was about 11 o'clock I wrote. So I phoned them to say, is this normal? And I got chastised for not letting them know that my wife had the flu previously. Probably would have been a nice detail for them to have.
Because what, they would have delayed the treatment?
They would have delayed, and frankly, I didn't want it delayed. That's why I didn't tell them.
Okay.
I just wanted to get on with it. And I didn't want to make that phone call before, in case. But then they were like, yeah, this is normal, and this is going to go on for a few days now, so we're always here. Here's some techniques you can use, to warm yourself up. And so things I'd forgotten they told me. So I was eating with wooden cutlery and gloves, just anything just to not touch metal. And our house that we lived in at the time was wonderfully cool downstairs, no matter what the weather. I avoided that like the plague. I just stayed upstairs and kept myself around room temperature warm things. So yeah, it was phoning them and just getting coached back through all the stuff I wish I should have listened to, as opposed to just thinking they're telling me to eat cake. They told me again and helped me so much. They're really incredible.
The coldness, is that's a physical, you feel cold, so you don't want to be anywhere near it. That's what that is.
It's a physical, if you breathe in the cold, if your fingers feel the cold, my fingers would tense up, I was dropping things. And then you get this almost like a choke in the back of your... So if you think about, I don't know, you go out in the morning and you breathe in and you get that nice cold air, that would make my throat just close. And you're unable to breathe for 2 or 3 seconds. And one of the things they say to you pre-chemo is, don't panic if that happens, just try and relax and it will come back. And that's exactly what happens. But every time it happens, it's scary.
Yeah.
So it's you're not cold. It's if anything around you is cold or cutlery. So you won't, maybe if anyone's watching this or listening to this, just go into your drawers and just touch your knife and fork that you normally eat with and realise how cold that is. In my case, touching them would result in like a clenched hand and the inability to hold anything for a few seconds.
Wow. That must have been pretty scary. Like, that scary in the fact that that's round one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there any part of you like, fuck this, I don't want to go on?
Yeah. And
go on, in life. Fucking hell.
Well,
I mean, more. Yeah. Well, you know, yeah, I guess there's that element to it, isn't? But there must have been a moment of, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, there was almost. I tried to. I deal every day with stats and in my day job, and I'd had this thing called a ctDNA test, which I had no idea what it was when I signed up to it. So when you get offered chemotherapy, you'll also be asked if you want to go and participate in a research trial. I'll rephrase that: you may get asked if you want to participate in a research trial, and I did. And this was for something called ctDNA, which is essentially DNA of a tumour. I had no idea what it was, so I said yes anyway, and went and had a load of blood taken. And they phoned me 8 weeks later, which is just as I was about to start the treatment, and they said, "Oh, your ctDNA is negative." And I was like, "Oh, that's a shame," because what they told me is if you have a positive ctDNA, there's the potential to develop an antidote for cancer. So in my head, I was like, "That's great. If I can get that, then I'm good." Actually, what ctDNA is circulating tumour DNA, which means there's no circulating tumour DNA in your body, which in other countries influences whether you get chemotherapy or not. And I then discovered influences the non-administration of chemotherapy. So I dredged this up after the first treatment, saying to the nurses, "Surely I don't need this anymore. I've got negative ctDNA, blah, blah, blah." But it turns out that's quite a temporary thing if the tumour comes back. So, yeah, I tried to use what I understood about the medical profession, which is not as much as the medical profession.
As a way out.
As a way out of chemotherapy, yeah, and it failed.
Yeah, okay.
For good.
So back into round 2 then, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Any changes from the first time round? What do you start to get used to? What's different?
You're now used to the fact, so you have like a week off where your body starts to become normal again. But
Can I ask, sorry, Dar, just really quick there.
Sure.
So normal though, how normal? Normal back to being you, or back to not feeling as ill?
Not feeling as ill, and this didn't happen on the first one, but as it went on, my mentality and my mental health suffered hugely. I developed a form of psychosis, which is, again, as you come off the drugs, your body then starts to send signals to your brain that it wants more. So in the second one, I can swear on here. I've got a book called Oh Shit, so surely I can swear.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah. On the second one, my first, and we're returning to this similar theme, sorry. The Aperol shits kicked in.
So the title, just very quickly, is Aperol Shits and a Creamy Curse.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
So that's when my taste buds changed, and halfway through the second treatment, the Aperol shits kicked in, which was, unfortunately for anybody watching or listening, was pure orange releases.
Shit.
Yeah, pure orange shit. Pure orange, almost involuntary shit. Which, if memory serves me correctly, was actually my body just clearing stuff. Just get out. But it was some of the most awful stuff to ever come out of me in so many ways. But also, and I think it's dead cells. Somebody might correct me on that. But that was right at the same point as everything began to taste creamy. And when I say everything, I mean every single thing I placed in my mouth tasted of cream. Really, really full fat 1980s cream. Slightly off as well. And that's what makes you fall out of love with food. And in my case, genuinely, I have a genuine reactive dislike and hatred for pizza to this day as a result. So I was having this weird creamy taste and said to my wife, Emma, I'm going to order my favourite pizza from Pizza Express. That's going to sort it right out. And I took a taste of it, and my brain had made the signal, that's a pizza. It's got chicken on there, balsamic onion, and it's going to be delicious. And then it received the feedback that it was a creamy pint of milk from 1982. And it physically repulsed me. And I genuinely have never touched a pizza to this day when somebody's eating one opposite me, it makes me want to physically hit the pizza. And I'm genuinely not joking. It's this emotional reaction that I've never had to anything, let alone a food. But every single thing I ate tasted like that. And so you end up going to cakes and biscuits and just trying to get that sweetness and shove something in. It's bonkers.
That's, again, kind of mind challenging, isn't it? Not so much physical, but you one of the things that you mention here as one of the chapters is the worst day I've had mentally.
Yeah.
I'm on the verge of crying. I feel like I've gotten old overnight, lost my fitness, lost my spark. What caused that, or what part of this was causing that? And if you don't mind, how bad did it get?
I'm not a particularly emotional person, but even you just reading it back to me is making me feel a little emotional now. So I've always been a pretty stable, steady Eddie. So I never get too up or too down. My wife might term that as being miserable, but that's her definition and this is mine. But I'm not that person who, prior to this gets nervous. Doesn't mean I'm not excited and pumped to do it. I'm just not that person. And most things don't generate much of an emotional reaction from me. And that was the problem. My emotions were all over the place. I would wake up in some of the darkest places I've ever been, and I would wake up with some of the most creative ideas I've ever had. But on one particular day, where we lived at the time, my wife worked about an hour away in the car. And so it was down to me to go and walk the dogs. So I was walking the dogs. And I could just feel anger from out of nowhere just hitting me like a truck. And I was angry at just everything. I couldn't tell you what, just anything around me, including my poor dogs. So I made a decision that I would come home and not give the dogs an opportunity to make me any more angry by running off or eating something they shouldn't, just make sure that we were all good. And I got to the front door and I just had a breakdown. I just started sobbing. I couldn't hold myself kind of up straight. I was trying to get my key in the door, couldn't get my key in the door. When I finally got in, I let the dogs in, and then I phoned my wife up and I was screaming down the phone, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And she was like, I'm coming home now. And I was screaming, no, don't. I don't even know why I've called you, and just going, poof, poof. And I've actually still got that on the ring door, on the doorbell. Because I made sure that if ever I feel down in the future, I've got that to show me where I was. But that's where it, for me, I mean, other people can go to different levels, but for me, that was the lowest point. I just was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't handle the uncertainty. I can't handle the pain. I can't handle the drugs. Everything just got on top of me. And that was literally my lowest point. And kind of coming out of that was difficult. And even to today, I've since had counselling and I've since spoken to people. I still suffer from many after effects today from chemo. But the one I suffer from most is recalling that day, and whenever I feel down, I can go to that place again fairly easily now, and I was never like that before. It's like I discovered something about myself that I didn't know was there. So that was so much more challenging than surgery.
Yeah. It's funny, we've had a guest on very recently that talks about when you're going through something very difficult, lots of people look outward to, oh, well, that person's not got a leg, or their wife has passed away or something like that. They have it harder. Why can't I be that resilient sort of thing? But there's normally an episode in your own life that you can probably recall back to, and probably not at the time, but that's happening for a reason going forward in the future, that you're able to look at that ring video to go, I was there once, and I'm not now. How much of it though, Dar, are you able to kind of in that space? Obviously not at the time that it's happening, but how much are you able to kind of rationalise that this isn't you, that this isn't a normal state of mind? This is being caused by a very intrusive treatment that is necessary.
Yeah. But again, come back to that helpline. They were the people I called after I basically phoned my wife back and gone, I'm still feeling absolutely terrible, but you don't need to come home. I can handle this. I'm going to call the helpline. So I called the helpline, and they give you somebody that can really help in that point of view by explaining that it is a side effect, that it's temporary, that you can go and see someone right now at Macmillan Centre if you want to help you out. And that's an amazing thing that exists in this country. I think I said it last time. Macmillan nurses and Macmillan Centres and Bowel Cancer UK helplines, they're there for that scenario. And
Did you feel that? Did you really feel you got that sense, which is so important, getting that sense of they are there for exactly this?
Yeah, completely. But as a typical bloke, I didn't use it. I didn't think I was going to need it or use it, so I didn't listen when they were telling me about it. It's a bit like sitting on the plane and they're telling you how to do your life jacket, and you've been on the plane 100 times, so you don't look up and you don't really listen. You're only ever going to find out how much you have absorbed when that plane's going down. And weirdly now, when I sit on planes, I look and listen because I think I didn't do it that time. I need to know if ever something happens again in my life. So having that was good. And that was really the reason as well that I started writing those diaries, because I sat down and I wrote about how I was feeling, and just getting it out there from my brain onto the page, viciously tapping away at the keyboard, made me feel better that day.
Yeah.
And that's the point of why I want to share here and there and the book, this stuff, because if somebody else is going through this, hopefully they will go, do you know what? I'm not the only person going through it. It's not a one-off. This happens to other people. There's ways to deal with it. You can come out the other side. And also, as my wife will tell you, for those people that are supporting you going through that, it's awful. It's hideous. Imagine getting that phone call.
Yeah.
And so, people that care for others, I think, also need to know there's ways and means of dealing with these things.
Yeah. When did that start to lift? When did you start to get to the end of this treatment scenario that you, not that you, I'm all right, but that you could sense, okay, getting used to it, knowing that this is a process?
Do you know what, the chemotherapy during the treatment, I never once got used to it. Never once. It was throughout, I just couldn't wait to get to the back of it, to the point where they during my third treatment, I think they said, it might be 6. And I was like, sorry, I thought it was 4. Oh, it might be 5, might be 6. You'll need a scan. I was like, whoa, hey, I've got plans. You're not thinking this could make me better. You're just thinking this is making me ill.
That's a real thing there, isn't it? That there must be a mindset there of this is the thing that's making me bad, not the thing that it's trying to fix.
Exactly. As far like you could go back to what you said at the very beginning, that's gone. It's been taken out. This is mopping up something that may not even be there. And I wasn't thinking rationally about the probability of mopping up something that might not be there. I was just thinking, that's the date I'm done. I can go on holiday. I can do all these other things. But genuinely, your question was, when did you get over all of it? And I insinuated as much on the first podcast, actually, and it was the week after our first podcast, so that was October last year, when I had a colonoscopy and I looked on that camera, on that screen, and there was nothing there. So that was 4 months after chemo. That was when I got over chemo and surgery. I'm sure everyone's different, but yeah, that was definitely it for me.
Yeah, that must have been a real emotional lift.
Huge, yeah. It was the burden of proof that no one could tell me until I saw it on the screen.
Yeah.
And you should definitely trust medical people because they know what they're doing. But I trust my eyes more, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And to have you in a colonoscopy, there's normally at least 3 people in there, include as well as you. So to have those 3 people looking at my insides and telling me, yeah, you're good, my eyes going, because last time they saw a big thing in there, yeah, that all looks good, and where are we, and can we get all the way around? Yeah, that was the moment where I think after 12 months, I just breathed much more easily.
How has your relationship with your wife been during that process? Because that's the reason I ask is, again, a little bit of research on it. There are so many elements that people think the physical aspect of surgery is going to be the part where you lean on your partner most. That this is a whole different ball game. How was it during chemo?
My wife is absolutely amazing. Like, she was always there to support me. I'm sure she was probably telling people stuff, friends that I don't know about. But no, she's incredible. My wife Emma's had her own issues health-wise, so she's incredibly resilient. But she needed the support of other people. And it's, as you know, but viewers may not know or unlikely to know, we've moved back here. In my case, back, in Emma's case too, because our support network was a bit more distant where we used to live. So now being here, we've got a much wider support network. And that's mainly because over the next 5 years, the relative probability of cancer returning is higher than it would be at any other point in my life, before or after. So we know if it happens again, she's got a lot more support, which she needed then, but she managed. So our relationship has been brilliant. Although, interestingly, she did say to me this morning, quite ironically, that she'd seen a statistic yesterday that if a wife gets cancer or another debilitating disease, 40% of their husbands would question and or leave them. Whereas it doesn't change at all if a husband gets cancer or a debilitating disease.
Fuck, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Reading through the lines there, she's telling you, you're lucky.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
She's
yeah,
like, you're lucky she hung around. Right?
Her next words were, you best not leave me if I get cancer.
Yeah, that's weird. We've, as I say, we've had somebody on recently on the podcast that has gone through a very big life-changing scenario where somebody left him halfway through the kind of rehabilitation, and I think it's one of the things that you probably never think about. Obviously, that element of someone leaving you don't. But we've done some episodes this season that really, the subject matter, in this case being yourself, is only a part of it, right? You'll never know when Emma goes to bed or in a dark space in her own mind, let's say, or some of your friends, some of your other family that just are thinking about you at a certain period of their time that can really, people can feel useless, can't they, as well, right? That must be a really challenging element for them.
Completely. I hope he doesn't mind me saying it, I have a really good friend who, he's lost multiple people to cancer, and he's really struggled to remain in contact with me because I bring that straight home to him.
Yeah.
And I completely understand that, because I really struggle now to hear and see about people with cancer. And I hear it everywhere. These diaries isn't really about me. This is about how this can impact the person that's going through the diagnosis and everything that surrounds them. Everything, their work, their friends, their family, their pastimes, hobbies, everything. It all has this effect. And we don't realise it, and so a lot of people hide it. So there are people that aren't maybe as silly or stupid as me who keep it to themselves. Equally, I would suggest that I'm not the silly or stupid one in that scenario, but they're scared of what people will think if they know. And I just don't want people to have to go through that on their own. But I can understand why they would.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult to put yourself out there.
Yeah, I think it's but I think it's equally important to put yourself out there in these circumstances, aren't you? You know, somebody just knocking on your door, somebody giving you a phone call, somebody sending you a text out of the blue is one of the most beautiful things anybody can get, isn't it? You know, it can be a moment of they didn't need to. Well, I think when anybody you get a sense of they didn't need to, makes it so much more personal, doesn't it? You know,
it does. I had a neighbour who she'd just moved in, and she was literally our next door neighbour, and she kind of was, you know, looking for information about the local area and so on, and getting to know us. So she knew what was going on. And she said to me one day, midway through the treatment, words that you said a moment ago. As soon as you said it, it reminded me of her. She said, it's like a bleach in your body, and the more you feel it, the better it's working. And in my head, as she told me that, I was thinking, have you been through this too? But I was in that kind of foggy, misty chemotherapy place, and my brain would have a single thought and then not spark another action, which is really debilitating, by the way. But when I was feeling better, we were sat in our front garden on a sunny day, and I said to her, have you been through this too? And she'd been through breast cancer 20 years previously, and I was bringing back all the memories for her. And I asked her, do you still worry about it? And she said, every single day, but it just gets a little bit less every day. But when she moved in next to us, everything came back.
Dar, you as you've come out of that treatment, you mentioned about no visible aspects, no traceable aspects of cancer, which is fantastic news, mate. Obviously, certainly very delighted to hear about it. What part of the journey do you think you're on, though? Because you're sharing there that you met somebody that you didn't know who talks about still thinking about it 20 years later. How are you getting on? Like, is there an almighty hangover to this? Are you still finding certain things difficult? Completely understandable. How recovered are you?
I would say I'm 80% of the previous version of myself, maybe. So physically, you don't get over that surgery quickly, and chemotherapy makes your body feel things more as well. So the pain of the surgery remains, and I think that's almost gone now. It's feeling a lot better. The hangover from the chemo, I can still on a cold day get frozen fingers, and I'm still dropping stuff. I never dropped anything in my life before. Wasn't the best catcher, but I never dropped things. Now I'm clumsy all the time. The mist is lifted, but it's still there. I'm not as sharp as I was. So I think mentally I'm probably 60% of what I was, and physically I'm probably 90% of what I was, so they kind of meet in the middle. But where I am is I'm much better at dealing with it now. I'm back to what you would call normal life. So no longer have those appointments that constantly remind me that I'm poorly or was poorly. So I'm thankful. I'm well on the road to recovery, but mentally I'm a very different person to the one before, much more in tune. And I kind of wish I was still as ignorant as I used to be, because I think almost being in tune with your emotions means you're opening yourself up to all sorts of stuff. And I think I preferred ignorance, if I'm perfectly honest.
Okay. You feel more present, aware, not as miserable as your wife perhaps described you. Yeah.
I'm definitely thankful for those small moments. And again, sorry to keep referring to the book, but I talk about that in the book. I had a lot of flashbacks, and there's some stories in there about some of the flashbacks that I had. But I have those a lot more now about, my past, and looking back and smiling now, thinking about a few things. So I'm definitely more present, and I hope I am more present in conversations now, because I think previously my lack of emotive response would manifest itself as looking like I was disinterested. So I'm hoping externally I'm a lot more appealing and interested in people now than it felt like I was before.
You mentioned that you're 90% back to full physical health, which is a fucking good job, right? Because next weekend, you are going to do a small event around the Isle of Wight.
Yeah.
You are walking how far? Walking, running? Running, how
Hopefully.
far?
107 kilometres. They've just changed it yesterday. They told us the route had to change.
And what was it originally?
106. It's only an extra.
Oh, fucking, I thought they'd put it down.
No,
they never
I
ring you
wish.
that way, though, do they? Yeah,
No.
they've dropped it down to 50k. So you're doing 107 Ks.
Yeah.
You're doing it with a friend of yours, Wayne.
Yeah, that's
Wayne
right.
Benson,
Yeah, good Wayne.
that you've known for a long time. Tell us about it. Why are you doing it, and what's it for?
So why is because I ran 55 about 5 months before my diagnosis, so I didn't even know I was carrying that tumour around. And Wayne was amongst many people that supported me then. And when I was ill, when I was going through the chemo more than anything, I'd said to myself, I want to do something. I want to get fit. And this came up. My in-laws live on the Isle of Wight. We go there an awful lot. I know how hilly it is, and I still chose to do this. But thankfully, Wayne chose to do it with me as well. So we're doing it for Bowel Cancer UK. So it's to raise money for Bowel Cancer UK, which will be used for research and for looking after patients like myself or previously myself. And yeah, everything goes to Bowel Cancer UK. And yeah, we're hoping to run around it all next Saturday, a week tomorrow. And we're recording this in April of 2026. So yeah, 107 kilometres, starting at 7:30 in the morning. And with any luck, two things. Goal A is to finish. Goal B is to finish in time to go for last orders at the pub.
Amazing. How are you feeling about it? Because this has got to be quite emotional as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think I'll be emotional at the end, maybe. But no, I feel good, to be honest. Again, I told you, I don't get too emotional about things. I don't get nervous. So I'm neither of those two things. What I am, I hope, is prepared. Wayne and I have clocked up somewhere in the region of 700 kilometres since January running. So I'm never going to be an elite sportsman. That day is long gone and would never have come anyway. But I feel like that 90% that I gave you, that isn't what the watch is telling me. The watch is telling me that I'm 110% of what I was in May 2024. And I'm about 150% of what I was a year ago. So I'm hopeful.
It's brilliant news, mate. And raising money for...
All for Bowel Cancer UK.
Yeah, brilliant. So we'll obviously make sure part of your donation page and the details are on the Graft podcast. We'll do a little video next week and put that out there as well. In terms of the books, we're fresh off the press with Volume 2.
Yeah.
That's out now.
Just come out 2 days ago,
Okay.
April 21st.
People can buy it, and where can they buy it from?
I guess the easiest place to go to is Amazon.
Yeah.
But you can get it on Kindle, Amazon, Apple Books, all of the usual book platforms, and to use the Soccer AM joke, and a few bad ones too.
Yeah, okay. And proceeds of that as well are also going towards
So
Bowel
a
Cancer
percentage of
UK,
the profits goes to Bowel Cancer UK. And within the book, there's a lot of information. It's written in support of Bowel Cancer UK and with their approval. So whilst there's nothing in there that is recommending medical, from my point of view, there's a load of resources in there for who to contact, where to contact them, how to go and get checked, what to look out for, and all that good stuff, which Bowel Cancer UK have been kind enough to look through and say, we're good to publish.
Amazing. Hey, Dars, thank you so much for being the first Graft guest to come back on the show.
Thank you.
We're delighted to hear about your progress. Thank you for how open you are about this difficult stage and the difficult stage that you went through, because it sounds raw. I'm watching your eyes as you're talking this through this as well, that it looks real, and you've come through a hell of a journey. And the beauty of this, and the reason that I know that you wanted to do this in the first place, is people listening potentially going through it.
Yeah.
There might be somebody at that doorstep staring into a Ring camera right now, going through a really difficult stage in their life, and hopefully this will help them. I'm sure the way that you articulate it, both here and in the book, will help them to do that. The very best of luck with your challenge. We'll be rooting for you, and know that you've got that tough time to look back on, to know how resilient you can become. But we're so glad that you're you've come through it and you're doing some incredibly impressive stuff to help others.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the
Appreciate
podcast, mate.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
That's a wrap on this week's Graft. Please make sure you follow the podcast from wherever you listen or watch from so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.